Hi everybody, welcome back to Pelvis Party. My name is Becky Montpetit. I am the owner of Rochester Local, and as always on Pelvis Party, I'm joined by two wonderful guests. This is Eyita Gaga. She's a certified nurse midwife at Olmsted Medical Center in the Birth Center, and this is Britt Marschall with Marketing and Communications at Olmsted Medical Center. And today we are talking all about midwifery. Did I say it right?
Yes, you did.
Midwifery. It doesn't feel like that's the correct way. Like, people would see the word and maybe you say midwifery because you say midwife,
Yes,
but it's midwifery, right?
Confusing. Yes, it's midwifery.
Excellent.
She is a midwife.
Yes,
Yes,
right.
I
There
think
we
that's
go.
why.
It's confusing.
It's because of the pronunciation. Yes, it's true.
Yeah. Okay, so I cannot wait to talk all about midwifery at Olmsted Medical Center. So let's just dive right in.
Let's say, I think it's a little hokey, and that's why I think I thought holistic.
Oh, sure.
And I just saying, oh, it's this foofy, thing you're gonna do.
And it's very...
It's part of your pregnancy and birth.
It's very...
I don't understand it, so I'm really glad.
Right, it's very alternative. It's very fringe. Right, and so if you don't know any better, then it's easy to see why maybe people would think that. So tell us what midwifery is.
Yeah, I think it's because we do have different types of midwives that exist. There are community midwives that exist, certified professional midwives that exist that usually take care of people, pregnant folks, outside of the hospital setting. I'm a certified nurse midwife, so I have a nursing background, and then we go to graduate school. I have a doctorate in midwifery, and so we get training on how to care for people. I'm a full scope midwife, so that means that I care for pregnant people during pregnancy, childbirth, postpartum. And then I also see people for gynecological problems, for menopause care, for any sort of care that you need throughout your reproductive years. I can see people for. So it can be confusing because I think the term midwifery, I think there's a show called Call the Midwives. I think there's a lot of reference points that people have to this term. So it's important to know that there are different types of midwives that exist. And at OMC, we are all certified nurse midwives. So we are medical professionals and we provide care in the medical setting.
So you don't have to have a baby to be seen by you.
We don't. Yep, you don't have to be pregnant. You don't have to have a baby to be seen by us. The vast majority of our patients are pregnant, so we do care for people for pregnancy and labor and birth. As far as the term midwife, it means to be with women. So our philosophy is really to be with you, and that I know that's gendered language, and I do want to acknowledge people that are non-binary and trans men that we provide care for too. But our whole philosophy is around being with you. So we spend time, we build trust with our patients, and release that relationship that carries a big part of the care that we provide. And for labor, we are with you in the room as you labor. We provide care for people who choose unmedicated routes and medicated routes. So that's important to know because I think midwifery for a lot of people means I have to have this natural labor and birth experience.
Pain management, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's not the case.
We do that. So if that's our whole philosophy is around supporting the experience you want to have.
Sure.
So if your plan is to go unmedicated, then we have ways to support that process. And then if you want medications, we're right there with you, giving you the medications and making sure that you feel supported with that decision too. Our patient population is considered low risk, so our expertise is really in the low risk pregnancies. And that's the vast majority of pregnant people, like 70 to 80% of people are considered low risk when it comes to pregnancy. So they fall under the midwifery scope of practice. That's a general overview. I think I covered most of the things.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe you could talk a little bit about what a patient might experience when they come to see a midwife for their prenatal care.
Yeah, so there's that initial prenatal care where we establish care at around 10 weeks of pregnancy. Our visits are a little bit longer, and I think it's, again, because the midwifery model of care really does focus on establishing a relationship and trust with our patients. And so we want you to feel seen and heard, and we want to provide the space to be able to address the concerns that you have. So that initial visit is when we initially get to know you. I mean, if you've had a pregnancy in the past with us, it's continuing that care.
Yeah.
But if it is the first time we're meeting you, it's really getting to know who you are throughout the history portion, collecting the history part of your story. And then we talk about, pregnancy and what it's going to look like. If it's your first pregnancy, that's going to be a little bit more detailed, a little bit more information, just because there's a bit more of a learning curve when it comes to the first pregnancy experience. We answer, all the questions that you may have coming into the visit. We address, the first trimester symptoms, all the things that you may be experiencing, try to come up with ways to resolve some of the symptoms that you're experiencing. And then there's the physical part of the visit where we do the head-to-toe physical exam. We go over, usually you have an ultrasound done, a first trimester ultrasound. So we go over the first trimester ultrasound report with you and address any concerns that you may have. And then throughout the pregnancy, we make sure to know that, we're right there with you. We make ourselves accessible through, we have my chart at OMC, so we make sure to let you know that that's available, and we're in constant contact with you throughout your pregnancy. But typically we see you at like 16 weeks, then 20 weeks, and every 4 weeks up until the third trimester of pregnancy. Then we see people a little bit more frequently. But our visits are a little bit longer. Each visit is a little bit longer just because we want to give you that space to make sure that you're feeling supported with whatever concerns that you have throughout your pregnancy. And then, that's pretty much the prenatal visits. It's really a focus on being with you through the experience of pregnancy.
I think when I saw midwives at OMC for my birth there, I know, it was wonderful. And I think that was my first real, true understanding. And when my filter flipped about pregnancy, it's so easy to treat pregnancy as something that is happening to you, a medical incident. Something that needs a treatment, and having the understanding and the empathy, and again, that coming alongside that childbirth is part of what your body does. It's not a medical incident. It's not something to be treated. It is what our bodies were created to do. And I think having that flip switched for me was a huge part of just being empowered in my pregnancy. Yeah,
exactly. And I think empowerment is the key. And I think the time that we spend with each of our patients lets us know what would be empowering for that person. And it's going to look different for each person, for sure. Some people do need to hear that piece of like, this is what your body is made to do, and you can do it. Like, this is, and some people, I think it's really just such a range of experiences that people have with their pregnancies. And I think the biggest piece is getting to know each person and really knowing the piece that's missing to really empower them. That's going to be, that's a huge part of what we do.
That sounds so lovely. I wish I would have known what a midwife really was.
I know. Again, like everything that we're talking about on Pelvis Party, it's just knowledge is power, right? We just having this opportunity to hear exactly what it is and exactly what it can be for a person. So I think it's also important to note too that when a person is seeing a midwife and perhaps they don't have the outcome that they were expecting with their birth, and they're seeing a midwife, and to understand that the outcome that I was expecting while seeing a midwife, actually I had a C-section. I ended up with a C-section. However, I was so nervous that I would just be like looked down on. Why? Who knows where I got that? But I was like so nervous that would be the case. But I think that it just ignited more care, more empathy, more compassion, more understanding,
That's
and
awesome,
that midwives are there for you no matter what the outcome of the birth is. There is no shame.
And that's the biggest piece, right? Like, to me, it's really about labor and birth can take so many directions, right? Like, and we go over something like a birth plan because we have, like, that's part of our prenatal care is to sit and talk about, like, what are your goals for labor and birth? You know, but part of that conversation is always like, there's a piece to this that nobody's going to be able to predict.
Right.
And that's how nature works, and that's just the nature of the game or what labor and birth is like. And the biggest like emphasis that I try to make is throughout all of the changes or experience of labor and birth, midwives are really the experts in really being with you through that process, right? Like it's so that you don't feel isolated and like that you're experiencing these like major changes to what your expectations were by yourself. And I think that's what we focus on is really like, I want you to know that regardless of what happens, we're here for you. And we're going to be holding your hand throughout this process. And that's going to be like, and that's just such a major piece of what we do is support all of the changes that happen. And if, you know, the labor and birth happens the way that you were expected, expected it to happen, that's also a beautiful thing. It's just knowing that like, it might not go the way that you expect it to go, but we'll be right there for you, and we'll be there with you.
Well, and I've heard too that you all are actually in the room a lot, right? Like in comparison to maybe working with an OB-GYN who they're delivering all night or whatever the circumstance might be, but you're in more frequently because you are there.
Exactly. Our expertise is really in the physiologic labor and birth experience, so the normal process of labor and birth, and we know how to support that process. So we're in the room during the labor part a lot more. We have, especially when we only have one patient to take care of, we're just able to be there. If we have multiple patients, we try to be there as much as possible. We love working with doulas. I don't know if you guys know a little bit about doulas, but you know, if the patient has a doula, we love working with them because they're great at supporting labor and supporting, like providing that continuous labor support. And we know that really results in better outcomes, that continuous labor support. So that's why we try to be in the room as much as we can.
Oh my goodness. I just feel like, can you imagine if you're a patient and Eyita is your midwife? It's just like, oh God, I just feel like my whole body has just relaxed, just sitting and talking with you. So what a wonderful provider you are.
And that's why I think like I would have loved that so much, because I gave birth to my children where I had no family around other than my partner. And so just having that support and like feeling connected to someone else who is, you know, walking you through that process hand in hand.
Exactly.
Lovely.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here on the Pelvis Party. We're so glad to have your calming presence here in the studio with us. So thank you all for joining us, and we will see you next time.